Hi there, this is Sam, and I would like to cover the Juliet CMS login system today. And there's quite a few topics to cover, so this tutorial is going to be about 15 to 20 minutes long. So we'll try and cover this as quickly as we can in an effort to make things go quicker. I have started to get more advanced, and I have an actual outline for this tutorial instead of winging it. And so Juliet CMS logins, an overview, and what we'll cover, and then we're going to discuss login types. And there's 5 of them, so they all have a reason, and they may change in the future, but this is a pretty good overview, and by the time we're done, you should understand what to do where in order to accomplish certain things. So let's get started. Let's start with the concept, and we'll pull this back here, of environments. What are login environments? Well, I'm going to cover that real quick. Let's start with this right here, this location, and it says wingedrepublic-local.com. That is actually on my own computer. It's my local environment. Nobody in the world can see it. This is where I develop things. This is where I test things. This is where I add features. This is where I fix problems. And when I'm done, then I will move that to where we call QA. QA is qa.wingedrepublic.com in the case of Winged Republic, and QA stands for quality assurance. QA is where I double check and make sure that all the changes in the code modifications that I've done actually work in a different environment. It's also where an employee or the site owner can go in and they can add content, they can get things in place that we don't want the world to see just yet, and make sure that we like it. Well, you can imagine we don't want the world seeing this, and we also don't want Google to index this. We want Google to index the production environment, which is www.wingedrepublic.com. So to recap, we've got 3 different environments. We've got my local, or some other excuse me some other developer's local environment. We have got QA, and then finally we got production. So let's first cover the QA filter or login. So in QA, if you go there, first time you open your browser, you're going to be asked to enter the account username and password. And let's cover that really quick. I should say the account credentials. So there are login credentials, and there are 2 kinds. As you can see, there's the site or account login, also known as a global login. There's also an individual user login, which is where I enter my email or username. It can be either one, and also my password. And a global login is going to have global privileges. A individual login is going to have different privileges based on who I am and what an administrator assigns, and also what the site is. So this is a global or account login, and I have set up a temporary password, so I'll use that because we're going to submit this, sign in, and I don't want to change this. And so now I am in QA. Any changes that I make will not be seen by the rest of the world, so it's qa.wingedrepublic, not www.wingedrepublic. And then when we're happy with that, then we'll push those changes to production, and then we'll test it again because we want to make sure that it works all steps of the way, that the public can actually see it. Okay, so we've covered one place where we have a site login. Let's now go to my local environment, wingedrepublic-local.com, and you've probably seen this before. You go down to the bottom of the page, and there should be a link normally somewhere called Site Editor, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm also going to enter, this is going to be the account login, and what I also want to do is I need to do something for privacy. So excuse me as I move this away and I sign in, and I just did successfully sign in, and I thought that might show the password in the query string, but it did not. Anyway, just wanted to be safety conscious or security conscious about that. Now I'm in site editor mode, and you can tell because there's a bar at the top that's got a few different drop-down menu options, and you may or may not see links sprinkled throughout the site like this. If you do see them, great. If you don't see them, click Show Edit Links, and you should see them, and you can make changes. So here's the CMS bridge. I made a change. I made another change. I update that, close that, and I can refresh that. Now, Site Editor is intended to be a global login because there are some times when you're logged in as a user, you're going to see certain content, and there's some times where you will not. So we have to have a way to edit the content whether somebody is logged in as an individual user or not. So that's why the, Site Editor is a global login. We're going to go ahead and leave Site Editor, and the next thing we're going to do is we are going to talk about an individual login. So let's just bring this back on the screen really quick, and we're going to start from scratch. So let's go ahead and create a user. Let's create an account. I'm not signed in right now because it says client sign in at the top, and so I click on that, and when I do, I've got the availability to log in. I'm not going to do it, but I know that this particular email is actually my login, so I could use that, but I don't. I'm going to act like I don't have an account, and I'm going to create one, and I'm going to go ahead and set up somebody that needs to be set up. And for security's sake, and the address, making that up. And notes are not required, but just for grins, let's go ahead and say, here are some comments. And let's go ahead and answer this question. What is 2 plus 6? I don't need a calculator for that. It is 8. So I'm ready to submit this form. Let's go ahead and submit it and see what happens. So not a whole lot. I'm directed back to the home page. Now, it does, however, say welcome Natalia Chudnova, and let's see what happens if I click that. Well, let's make sure that I was able to create the account successfully. So let's sign out, and now it says client sign in, so it doesn't recognize me. So I'm going to go ahead and go to client sign in, and that's what I entered. That's my password that I entered, and so I'm going to sign in, and it says welcome Natalia Chudnova. So everything works good. Let's click on this now. This is my switchboard. It may vary from site to site depending on what my permissions what my permissions are. And so modify your information. There we go. I could change that email address. I will do that later on. There's another way to do it as an administrator. I'm going to cover that in a minute. But it looks like everything is good. And if I was to modify this again, I would need to be smart enough to add 3 plus 18. Anyway, so that's that. Now, this login is still what we call a front-end login. This is for customers or visitors to the site to create an account. And it may appear in many different ways based on which site we're talking about. But this is the basic concept. So this is an individual user login. Now, that same individual user login, depending on what your privileges are, could allow you to go to the console. So let's talk about that. This is CGI/usemod, short for user modification. If you go to different pages on this site, you'll say, let's go to what to bring, and let's look at the URL. It's what-to-bring. You could probably guess that about us is, yes, about-us. And sign up now is sign-up-now. Okay, so you get the idea. These pages are, we'll call them virtual pages. There's not an actual page in the code called any of these things. But there is an actual folder called console. So if I go to wingedrepublic.com/console, I notice that the page looks different. It's kind of blank, and there's a login form that is greeting me. And so I have the option to enter my information there. Now, I don't think that I can log in as this particular user. Let's try it. You do not have proper access to the console. I would certainly hope so, because I'm just an outside user. But if I sign in as myself, I'm in. Okay. Now, let's see if I, as an administrator, can find myself. So I'm going to go to Members. And this is a private video, so do not share this with anybody. Keep it confidential. And let's go ahead and do a search. I've got 600 of 672 that are showing. And what I'd like to do is do a search for the name Fullman. And here is me. And this is my record. And if I go to Settings, I will see that I have the following accesses. And so DB admin is basically like God. I can do anything. Admin is like the owner of the site. And these will vary by site. Editor is a common one. Season Pass is something that's specific to Winged Republic for their dove hunting. And so this is the main thing that I want to show you, is the setting tab here. Now let's see if we can find Natalia, and what we're going to do is we're going to sort by the date that it was created. And now I'm going to flip that around and sort in descending order, and there we go. And now I am going to, well, I'm going to note that Natalia does not have any privileges, and so what I'm going to give her is admin, and admin really has everything below it, so that's all I really need. I'm going to skip doing DB admin. Actually, I'm going to do that just in case she needs to use it, and that's pretty much the only change I'm going to make. There's a lot of fields on here, and there's a reason, and you might have a question, why is there a tab for the company and why is there a tab for contact? Well, there is a reason. It has to do with e-commerce. I won't cover that now, but I did change something, just these two fields here. Let's go ahead and click OK. And so now let's go ahead and close this, and I'm going to sign out as myself. And now I'm going to try and sign back in as Natalia and see what happens. And I'm in. Okay, so I've given Natalia the ability to become an administrator back on the console. So wingedrepublic-local.com/console. Okay, now remember, each one of these sites is using a separate database, or these environments is using a separate database, and so the changes I make here are not on QA and they're not in production. But these are the four major kinds of logins. So let's recap those, and I'm going to pull this up here. So we've covered QA login, and that's done with the global credentials. In this case, in our case, it's CPM 185. We've covered the site editor login. That's also done with global credentials, and the reason for that is we want to be able to edit even content blocks that would not be seen by somebody who's logged in. So we need to edit the content that's both login content and not login content. Then we have individual user login and account creation. Excuse me. And I should say that this is what we would refer to as the front end. And then we also have the console login, which we would refer to as the back end. There's one further kind of login, and the file manager, also known as File Explorer, is going to require that. It's a global login. I'm just going to do that really quick. And this authentication window comes up, and you're going to enter the global credentials and click login. And we're in, and here's where we manage our images. And that's pretty much it. So there's multiple different kinds of logins. And again, just because you have a login doesn't mean you have permissions or privilege to do a certain thing. So Natalia Chudnova, for example, if we go to members, it actually does allow her as an administrator to see all the various fields where the hunting takes place, and she can actually book and reserve things. So I think that's sufficient to cover login, and I hope that gives an overview that's helpful, and we'll see you next time.